Peace and love, family. It's your boy, BrothaTruth, man. Tapping in with you for another episode of Do You Know the Truth, Part 2. And this time it's going to be about security instruments and how to secure your future. First and foremost, we're going to start off with trust. This is all about trust. And ever since you were born into this commercial system, you've been utilizing trust and setting up trust with different companies, different people, and of course, by setting up trust with the United States of America or your country that you currently live in when you first were born or birthed, B-E-R-T-H, into their system, and they gave you that birth certificate. But before we get there, we're still going to talk about trust and the very first trusts that were set up in the world and what they were utilized for. So this is going to be very important, and we're going to go ahead and take it all the way from the top. And we're going to start with the Unum Sanctum. We've already previously talked about the Unum Sanctum in the past with Pope Boniface VIII with 1302, but what we didn't mention is that it also was a trust that was being set up. He claimed the one holy church as this trust, and the only way to get to heaven was through him and the Vatican. And all property that Roman subjects had now all belonged to the Holy See and the Papal. Because first you already had the Unum Sanctum. Next, this leads to the three crowns. And these three crowns represent those three rings, crowns that you always see on top of the Pope's crown on top of his head. And every single crown is supposed to be a representation of a trust. And the first one is the Doctrine of Discovery, which was in 1455 by Pope Nicholas V, which was the land crown. This one basically claimed that all the land of the world and subjects now belonged in the trust of the Roman Pope. This deprived people from their birthright of claiming benefits off the land, because now they were saying it now belonged to the Pope and all subjects, land and property belonged to them. Next, you have the Artini Regis in 1481, which was the Crown II, which was the second trust that was set up by Pope Sixtus IV. All right. And this represented the body crown. This trust actually claimed your body and made you officially a Roman person, an official Roman subject that they can now benefit and profit off of and control. Then you have the Sublimis Duicis in 1537 by Pope Paul III. This trust claimed the soul of men. This also declared the indigenous peoples of America to be the true men, and that they are not only capable of understanding the Catholic faith, but according to our information, they desire exceedingly to receive it. Basically saying, hey, we know that the indigenous people are living people and they're conscionable of understanding the Christian faith. So yes, we will say they can be capable of being Roman subjects too, and basically they need to be civilized. That's what that third trust and that's what that third crown totally ultimately represents. All right, and that one's called Sublimis Duicis. All right, these are the real Sesticue trusts that are put in place, and the acts that follow were just to carry out these trusts that were going to be spread out throughout the world. Which now leads to the Sesticue Act of 1540, which is actually deeper than more people think, right? Now, we kind of touched on what it was and how it's set in place for the system and people to now start getting their property taken by the state. But what this was, many believed that Henry VIII just split from Rome just because he wanted to get a divorce from Queen Anne, and the Catholic Church prohibited it. But there was more to it, all right? He was also aided by the Venetians to take the third crown and gain ecclesiastical power to reap the souls of those that were lost at sea, all right? And be controlled for the Holy See and the church. So again, there was a lot of back-end things that were going on, and he was actually kind of working with the Venetians and some of the people that were working with the Catholic Church, and they were still getting things done behind the scenes. And this was what they gave them the blessings to do, which was carry out these Sesticue trusts for the church. The Venetians stemmed from the original Phoenicians and represented the majority of the black nobility and the popes who actually led during those times. So it's very important that you know who the Venetians were still too, because they actually came from royal families who used to be melanated too as well. I don't know if a lot of people also know, like when you see the Catholic Church, it's always this guy that's in red, you'll see him with a tall hat on his head and everything too. He represents someone called the Remembrancer. And this is when they first started using terms like perpetual remembrance, when it actually meant like forever and never goes away. These 3 trusts that were put together were supposed to be forever and never ever go away. And his job when he has on the all red is to be the remembrancer, because he's always supposed to remind people of these 3 trusts that were set in place and carried out by these Sesquive acts, which now leads us to your very first security and trust that was set up for you as a child, which of course is your birth certificate. All right. Now, this is important because the state set up this trust. Your mother executed it and granted it, as we've already discussed, and the state acted as your trustee, all for the benefit of you. Okay. For you to be a part of the state's trust. And what is the state's trust, you say? The state's trust is the Constitution. Okay, because the state has a constitution and they are the servants and the trustees in this trust. And we are the beneficiaries who the state actually works for when we're operating out of our private affairs. So that is a public trust that is set up for our public benefit, and they have public access to our trust and funds and everything else. The key positions, as always, like I said, are set up just like any other regular trust. And these are relationships that you've been setting up since you were a child. A Sesquive trust is a legal concept in which a person known as the beneficiary of the Sesquive trust has equitable ownership of the property held in trust for your benefit. All right, which the legal ownership is vested in the trustee. All right, so this is very, very, very important that you get, because when we go into these consumer contracts for credit and we give them our social security numbers, okay, we need to understand that we gave them substance. All right, and in return, they need to give us the benefit of utilizing the property. You see what I'm saying? So for us to even be paying a monthly bill on something we already gave you substance for is actually a tax. Okay. So there is no money. They took all the money way back in the 30s, right, with the Great Depression and everything else like that. And there is no money. There's only credits and debts. And they had to give us a system, a central banking system, to back us and give us a remedy for that. So that's why this is all about becoming a banker and understanding what these security instruments are. So first and foremost, your birth certificate is what we call a security instrument. Okay. A security is a financial instrument that holds some type of monetary value in their system. Okay. It represents ownership or position in a corporation or rights to ownership as represented by an option. So basically, when you had your birth certificate that was created for you, that was your birth certificate that they took at birth and actually put it on the actual stock market and started trading on it as a security. Okay. And it started gaining value. And we'll talk a little bit more about securities and how you gain value on the stock market as, you know, we go on further in the presentation. But basically, like I said, it also represents ownership in the company. So basically, when your birth certificate was created, you were buying ownership in the company and you got stock. That's really what that birth certificate represents, just a stock certificate that you bought stock in their system. Basically, you were traded over as property and your mother was giving back stock, a birth certificate, and on the stock market, right, you were gaining value every single day. You started gaining credits, okay? So we're gonna show you how to utilize these credits to tender and actually set off your debts, all right? Pay attention. So, debt securities. This is very important because we live in a debt wealth society. My good friend, Ether, always says, if somebody owes you, then you can never, ever be broke.
We live in a debt wealth society. One of the mottos is an age-old adage, I think is what the phrase is, right? Is as long as I owe you, you'll never be broke. As long as I owe you, you'll never be broke, because we live in a debt wealth society. I mean, this shit is biblical, literally. What is it, Matthew 6:12? Y'all check me if I'm wrong, but it's the Lord's Prayer, right? It'll say what? Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. If I have that right, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Well, what is that explaining? That is quite literally the principle of set off. Let's tie this in together. As long as I owe you, you'll never be broke. As long as someone owes me, I can never be broke. Because what it means to forgive somebody of a debt, as you forgive your debtors, a debtor is somebody that has a debt to you, they're indebted to you, they're obligated to you. So if you're obligated to another, let's put it in context. Forgive us our debts. To forgive a debt means to be absolved of it. You no longer have an obligation to perform. You're not indebted to anybody anymore. You don't owe them, right? So if you're going to forgive me of my debt, The only reason you're able to forgive me of my debt is because I'm going to make the decision to forgive another of their debt to me. So if I absolve them of their obligation of what they owe me by way of some performance, the reason I don't owe you now is because I told them, take what you owe me and give it to them.
Now, this is important to know because when our mothers invested in their commercial system, she gave up property, she gave up collateral, she gave up us, the child, right? In return for security interest. We're gonna talk about that later on, but a security instrument, a debt security was set up, okay? And that debt security is gonna be utilized here in the future to actually balance out books with credits. And the borrower agrees to pay back the principal amounts along with the interest rate at a later date. So basically, if we owe a debt, they're supposed to be paying it back for us. Security interest is a legal claim or right to a lender that has property of a borrower and secure the repayment of a loan or the performance of an obligation. All right. When somebody has security interest in a product, this is where the monies and things actually really come from because there is no real gold or silver anymore. This is a debt society. And as long as somebody owes you again, you can never be broke. All right. So you have something called equity securities, y'all. And these are your stocks and these are your shares. And again, this is your birth certificate that shows your equitable security, your equitable stock. When you purchase stock, you are buying a piece of a company which may now entitle you to dividends and give you, quote unquote, voting rights, okay, at shareholder meetings, okay? So that's what, when you got a birth certificate, this basically gave you the right to have voting rights in their system, which you all do every 4 years, which is voting for a new president of that corporation that you all were birthed into. Okay, so that's very, very, very important. That's not just a birth certificate. It's an equitable security that gives you stock and voting rights. These are all equitable securities. So how does this benefit the company and where does the money really come from for them?
And what funds the note? The signature is what funds the note. See, it sounds good. It's not so much that the signature funds the note, but in reality, what it is your signature binding you, obligating you, making you liable for some type of performance. So your agreement to incur a liability on the books, because there has to be a record. See, now we're getting deeper. It's record keeping, it's bookkeeping. Y'all ever seen, what was it, John Wick, right? Where somebody comes in, pulls up on John Wick, and he says what? Just sign the book, John, or you owe me a debt. And he pops open that little compass type structure with the little the sharp, right? The sharp intrusion, and you just kind of put your thumb on it and sign that it's taking place. And after that balance, that book, that record is ledgered. They then go into another book and they sign it, the banker, so to speak. What was it? Forgot his particular title, but the person who was basically over the Continental of New York, right? He was doing bookkeeping. It's all bookkeeping. In the private, hey, John, you owe me a debt. Remember that one time where I got you out the life and you said you was gonna owe me a debt or whatever it is? I'm calling that in right now. And if you don't, I can make your life hell if you don't, because you owe me. You're bound to me. You're bonded to me. You owe me a performance. And you can't break this bond because word is bond. See, we thought that was some cool shit to say up in New York. No, but see, quite literally, your word is your bond. All you ever have is your word. That is the source of all your riches. The words that you put, here's the point I'm making, the words that you put on the paper that you then put your signature to bind yourself to, that's what it means. That all you have is your word. You're only as good or worth something as your word, the words on the paper. That's your performance.
So basically now when we have debts that come up, right, we're supposed to be able to utilize the system and say, well, hold on, no, you need to go to the treasury because he owes me thousands and millions of dollars. My mother invested me in this system since I was a child, and my stock market has always gained value.
So I'm going to forgive the person indebted to me who has an obligation to me, let's say for $500. Right? You owe me $500, but I owe this gentleman over here $250. Take $250 out of that $500 you owe me. I'm going to absolve you of some of your debt. Right? So I'm going to forgive you of that debt, and you're going to forgive me of my debt to you. It's because you've given somebody a security interest in some property that they can leverage to get some more credit on the books. It's a credit game.
Right? You have security interest with them, and then basically if there's any debt, basically the one who is backing and securing you is supposed to pay for that. That's your treasury. That's the United States. They are your constitutor. And this is very important because a constitutor is one that's responsible for paying another person's debt. Okay? So let them do their job.
And do they not securitize these notes? Do they not hypothecate these notes? I believe that they do. I think, 90 days, not even that, into a mortgage, I'm pretty sure people go and send some correspondence to say such and such is now servicing the loan or providing the loan or what is the note holder now, right? So if it's just a piece of paper, well, why are they hypothecating it? Why are they securitizing it?
The bank now has the right to take your security instrument that has your signature and social security number, and they have the right to take it to your constitutor who's set up to pay off your debts, right? So not only, right, do they get the ability to have them pay off your debts, but they securitize your instruments, okay? And security is very, very, very important because they securitize and they can flip your notes times 10 times the value, okay? And when they securitize these instruments, not only are they paying off the original debt, but they're also benefiting, right, off those dividends, that extra that they got, that extra 90%, right? Because they flipped it for 10 times the value, so they got extra, all right? Those are called profits, right? And as the beneficiary of a Q trust, truly those benefits and those profits are supposed to be coming to you. But what's really going on is not only are they taking your security instrument and flipping it times 10, they're also benefiting and profiting off your name and your social security number. And then they're turning around with the audacity and telling you to also pay me every month too and the extra tax for this bill. That's crazy. You see what I'm saying? No way they're using your name and your property to make money on the security market and you aren't getting benefit from that. But yet they're still telling you to pay a bill. That's slavery while they're making money off of you. You see how crazy that is? This right out the definitions. So you're supposed to be having the profits, but yet they're securitizing.
Your word is your bond. Your word is your bond. So those words that you suffix your signature to or fix your signature to say, I will then do this, agreeing to owe somebody so that they never or can never be broke. You see what I'm saying? I'm enriching you by agreeing to undergo or undertake some performance. I ask this question frequently. Does the United States operate in a Federal Reserve banking system? It's an overwhelming yes. But if we understand that the United States is operating in a Federal Reserve banking system, and the Federal Reserve themselves have wrote a publication called Modern Money Mechanics, and they explain what they do when they make the loans, and it doesn't say anything about an application, as intelligent people, I'm pretty sure that we can come to the conclusion and reach the overwhelming consensus that it's probably not an application that funds the loan. Because they tell you what funds the loan. What we do when we make loans is to accept promissory notes in exchange for credits on a borrower's transaction account. That's what they say makes the loan. So I will give you all this as well. When it comes to litigation, because as I mentioned earlier, we know what? Courts are going to be absolutely necessary, an integral part of enforcing your remedy, because we live in this age of information, because everybody in their mama and them copying the same damn letters, listening to the same folks on TikTok that don't qualify no information, that end up saying that such and such is baseless and meritless and all of these other things. When I give you this sheet of paper, because again, why is somebody going to take the sheet of paper in the example we gave about hypothecating a mortgage or an auto loan or securitizing this note or that note? Because what they're trading are the rights to recoup the real property, the property of intrinsic value. Because if you don't perform on this paper, they're not going to take the paper and say, hey, I got paper. That ain't happening. They're going to go and say, because I'm holding this, I have rights in what is ascribed in this note. I'm coming to get that property, the house. I need that lien. I'm going to enforce this lien on that. Or I'm coming to get that car. I'm going to get the tow truck over there and repossess that. It's the property specifically, right? So, because we then know this, when it comes to enforcing something in court, you're going to have to understand the sciences and the arts of litigation, and that you really should understand this prior to you putting your first correspondence even in the mail. The reason that it's difficult for them to take some of your private issue instruments is because they don't see anything with such guarantees, things that they're already acknowledging or familiar with. So because they don't have this, what are you going to then have to do to enforce your remedy, to enforce your instrument, to enforce your rights in that instrument? you're gonna have to go to court. It ain't no avoiding it. You're gonna have to go to court.
So you thought you deserved your remedy, but you didn't get it. And why is that? Well, I'm sure it could be a lot of different things, the way y'all coming nowadays, but the majority of the time is because you had no grounds in facts or in law. And where we fail as pro se litigants, pro per litigants, is we lean on our own understanding. We read one citation and we try to make a conclusion on the entire case. And then we try to incorporate that citation into our argument without even understanding the merits. Merits, what are merits? Merits are the facts. Under the circumstances, this is the conclusions in which the judges came to.
No speculation, no conjecture. You're going to have to get in the book. This is not the 90s and the early 2000s no more, where shit was just sliding. It ain't happening no more. You're gonna have to go to court.
We've got to call them out because we got to first understand what's going on. Then we can know how to properly write our affidavits because we know, okay, this is what they're doing. This is what is fraud. And these are my rights that protect me in this situation.
My mentor teaches me this about an affirmative defense is I did what I did because you did what you did. Or even, same thing, right? My balance, polarity. I didn't do this because you didn't do this. But then we get into a matter of, well, who was supposed to or why, those type of things. But even that immediate point, there's so much more to litigation than I know my rights and House Joint Resolution says. Half y'all don't even know what House Joint Resolution 190, don't even know what it says. Don't know at all. And then we get into these situations and say, well, I can do this because they took the gold. What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
So when we are going into court and we're huffing and we're puffing because we believe that we do in fact deserve this remedy, and if we don't get it, then it's probably because they're prejudiced and it's a kangaroo court and they just rolled over my rights. Or maybe they knew your rights more than you did. Maybe you didn't even provide them with enough facts or evidence to even come to the conclusion that you deserve what you're asking for. You didn't deserve it because you can't stand 10 toes on it. You can't stand 10 toes on it because you don't have a well-rounded understanding of the principles.
According to 18 U.S.C. Code 914, whoever falsely personates any true and lawful holder of any share or sum in the public stocks or debt of the United States or any person entitled to an annuity, dividend, pension, wage, or other debt from the United States under such color personation, right, will be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 5 years. So what this is saying is, if these people are actually utilizing your name as a U.S. citizen, as a creditor of the United States, if they are utilizing your estate to make a benefit and a profit, and they are not utilizing your dividends for your benefit, right, then this is fraud and these people can go to jail. So when you're telling me that these people won't balance the books or they won't do their job, well, shoot, open up a court case and report these people, right? Because this is a violation of utilizing your estate, your number to make benefit, and they're not utilizing those dividends for you. They're just making money off your estate, which is fraud. They're doing everything and operating out of fraud. These people are supposed to be your trustees. At least if you're gonna take my money, at least utilize my money to pay off my debt. You know, at least do that. At least. That's fraud, y'all. That's identity fraud. They're taking your identity and making money off of you. Hello. Yeah, so it's important to know that instead of chasing money and dollar bills and trying to find out about this trust where you can somehow get $1 million and be rich forever, no, understand what security instruments is and find out where the money really comes from. And it's you, the source, and of course, security instruments. All right? So once you get this basic thing down about commerce, you'll understand that we don't need to waste so much energy on trying to get these magical poof funds, but just know and learn how to be a banker. So thank you for tuning in with us on another episode of Do You Know the Truth, Part 2. And I want to thank my special guest, Brother Jay, and of course the good brother 9 Ether. And we will be bringing you all back some more fire coming soon. Y'all can keep in tune with us on iselflawandmaster.com. Of course, you can catch me on all social media platforms at BrothaTruth. Holla at your boy, man.